"No man shall ever be king in Rome again." These words echoed through the streets of ancient Rome, words that would tear down centuries of monarchy and ignite the birth of a republic. Rome's story had always been one of power, of men who ruled through strength and ambition. But by the late 6th century BC, that power had become corruption. The final king of Rome, Lucius Tarquinius Superbus, Tarquinius the Proud, ruled not as a father to his people, but as a tyrant. Feared by the Senate, despised by the people, and driven by pride, his reign would end not through conquest, but through outrage. Among the noble families of Rome was a woman named Lucretia, known for her virtue and grace. Her name would become the catalyst for revolution. When the king's son, Sextus Tarquinius, assaulted her, Lucretia could not bear the shame or the dishonor brought upon her household. Before her father and husband, she spoke her final words, condemning the evil that had destroyed her honor, and then took her own life. Her death sent a shock through Rome like thunder over the Tiber. One man stood above the weeping crowd, Lucius Junius Brutus, her kinsman. Once thought slow-minded, he had long hidden his true intellect to survive Tarquin's cruelty. But now the mask fell. He lifted the blood-stained dagger from Lucretia's hand and held it high for all to see. "By this blood I swear, no man shall ever be king in Rome again." That oath became the rallying cry of the Roman people. What began as grief turned into fury, and fury became revolution. Brutus led the people to arms, calling upon the Senate and every household that had suffered under the Tarquins' rule. Together, they drove the royal family from the city, tearing down the symbols of kingship and declaring a new order. One built not on tyranny, but on shared power. This was the birth of the Roman Republic, a system where two consuls would rule in place of kings, checked by the Senate and accountable to the people. But even in its birth, the Republic carried the same fire that had burned in its kings: ambition, pride, and the relentless hunger for power. Rome had overthrown its kings. But the struggle for control of Rome had only just begun. The streets of Rome still trembled with the echoes of rebellion. The Tarquin kings were gone, their statues toppled, their name cursed. But freedom, once won, must be guarded, for without structure, liberty can collapse into chaos. Lucius Junius Brutus knew this. The man who had sworn Rome would never again bow to a king now faced a far greater challenge: to build something new in the ashes of tyranny. Rome's monarchy had fallen, but its institutions remained. The Senate, the army, the people, all needed order. Brutus proposed a system unlike anything before it. No man would rule alone. Power would be divided, shared, and limited. Two consuls, chosen yearly, would lead together. One could check the other, and both would answer to the Senate. It was a daring idea, a government built on balance instead of bloodline. The first consuls were Lucius Junius Brutus himself and Lucius Tarquinius Cocles, Lucretia's widowed husband. Their partnership was a symbol, justice and sorrow bound together to secure Rome's new future. But Rome's freedom came at a cost. The Tarquins were not content in exile. From the city of Veii and among the Etruscans, they conspired to reclaim their throne. Old loyalties within Rome stirred, noble families divided between the memory of monarchy and the promise of the Republic. Brutus, ever watchful, uncovered a secret conspiracy, led by none other than his own sons. They had been persuaded to restore the Tarquins, believing the crown could bring stability once more. When Brutus discovered their betrayal, the law demanded death, and so the founder of Rome's Republic was forced to stand before his sons, the very men he loved, and order their execution in the name of justice. The crowd fell silent as the young men were bound and struck down, not by an enemy, but by the will of their father. It was said Brutus did not flinch, but when it was done, he turned away and never spoke of it again. Rome had gained liberty, but it came at the price of a father's heart. His actions proved that in the Republic, no man stood above the law, not even the man who created it. And so the foundation of Roman government was set in stone: the state above the self, duty above desire. The monarchy had died with the Tarquins, but in its place rose a new power, colder, sterner, and destined to endure for centuries, the Roman Republic. The blood of Brutus's sons had barely dried when word reached Rome. The exiled king, Tarquinius Superbus, had not given up. He had found refuge among the Etruscans, rallying their armies to march upon Rome and restore his crown. The newborn republic stood on the edge of destruction. Its citizens were still divided, its army untested, its leaders uncertain if freedom could survive its first war. Yet the Romans had something no king could command, a cause worth dying for. No longer fighting for a ruler, they now fought for Rome itself. At the river Silvia, the Etruscan host met the Roman army. Among the defenders stood men whose names would echo through the ages, none more so than Publius Horatius Cocles. When the Etruscans broke through the outer ranks and rushed toward the wooden bridge leading into the city, panic spread. But Horatius did not run. He called out for his fellow soldiers to destroy the bridge behind him, to cut off the enemy's advance. And alone, he held the line. With sword and shield, he faced the Etruscan charge, striking down any who dared to cross. Arrows pierced his armor, but he fought on until the bridge collapsed behind him. Then, praying to the god of the Tiber, he leapt into the river and swam to the Roman shore, wounded but alive. His courage became legend, the first hero of the Republic, a symbol that Rome's strength came not from kings, but from its citizens. The Etruscans faltered, their morale shattered by the defiance of one man. Tarquinius's dream of restoration, drowned in that same river, swept away by Rome's resolve. Yet even in victory, Rome learned a lesson that would define its destiny. Freedom must be defended not once, but always. Enemies would rise again, from the Etruscans, from Sabine tribes, and from rival Latin cities who saw Rome's new government as a threat. But each battle forged Rome's identity, discipline, unity, and the belief that no sacrifice was too great for the Republic. From the courage of Horatius to the laws of Brutus, Rome began to shape something far greater than any single king's rule. It was not yet the empire that would rule the known world, but its foundation had been laid, a republic born in blood, built on duty, and destined for greatness. The Tarquins were gone. The Etruscans had been turned back. And yet, Rome, this small city along the Tiber, now stood surrounded by rivals who watched with unease. The world had changed. The kings of old had ruled by divine right, but Rome's new government drew its power from something far more dangerous, the will of the people. The nearby Latin cities, once Rome's allies, began to fear its growing strength. The Etruscans, humiliated by defeat, plotted revenge. Even the Sabines, Rome's old enemies from the days of Romulus, tested the borders once more. The Republic was young, barely standing, but it was already learning the art of survival. And survival in Rome meant adaptation. The Senate strengthened its power, appointing new consuls each year. Rome's army, once a band of citizen soldiers, was hardened into a disciplined force that could march and fight with purpose. Every man was expected to serve, to defend not a king, but the Republic itself. In this crucible, Rome discovered its greatest weapon: unity through duty. While other cities bickered or fell to internal strife, Rome endured. When famine struck, they shared their grain. When war came, they stood side by side. They built roads and walls, not just of stone, but of loyalty, between families, legions, and the state. And as Rome grew stronger, something began to stir deep within its people, an unshakable belief that they were chosen to rule, not by divine blood, but by destiny. The Republic forged its first alliances through both diplomacy and conquest. The Latin League, once a collection of equals, gradually came under Roman influence. Some were persuaded by treaties, others were subdued by the sword. Each victory expanded Rome's reach and filled its coffers. Each defeat hardened its resolve. By the end of the 6th century BC, Rome was no longer a small city fighting for survival. It was the dominant power in Latium. Its government, born from rebellion, had become an engine of conquest and control. The age of kings was over. The age of the Republic had begun, and with it came a promise that Rome would never again be ruled by one man. Yet in time, that very promise would be tested by the ambitions of men who dreamed of wearing the crown once more.